Welcome. Thanks everyone for joining Sportlogic's Advanced Media Operations webinar. I am Patrick Markey. I'm the Director of Business Development here at Media here at Sportlogic. I'm joined by my colleagues Mike Kelly. You might recognize Mike for appearances on the NHL Network and TSN. Mike is our Director of Media and Content. And we're also joined by Eugene Plawutsky. Eugene is our Senior Product Manager for all things media. And so we are about 2 weeks away from the restart of the NHL season. That certainly has us excited, but it also seemed to give us an opportunity, I think, to get everybody up to speed, what we've been doing at Sportlogic, and how we bring analytical storytelling to our partners and to fans. So what we're going to do here is I will go through a pretty brief high-level overview of Sportlogic just and what we do. I will hand it over to Mike. Mike will talk through what we do with our clients and how we support them in broadcast during, pre, and after games. Then we'll hand it over to Eugene. Eugene will talk about the products specifically that we provide our partners. So I think with that, I can get going. We'll have some time for questions at the end of this. So if you guys do have any questions, feel free to put it in the chat, and we'll see what we can get to at the end. So really high level here. Sportlogic, I mean, in a nutshell, we create sports analytics and insights driven by AI. For the sake of this conversation, we're talking hockey and NHL. We do other sports. We do soccer. We do lacrosse and college football. We'll focus on hockey for this conversation. And what that really means is, as far as processing video through AI, is that we are essentially ingesting and tracking every movement of players, the speed, the location, the XY coordinates on the ice. And that allows us to create some really interesting data points and analytics that we can bring to the market. There's basically two components to it. The computer vision is what I just mentioned. That's the tracking and the body pose. The second component is the machine learning. Machine learning is just about finding the patterns and allows us to do interesting things like analytics, predictive analytics. Next slide's fine. So what does that AI allow us to collect? I think this is a pretty good high-level capture of what we're talking about here. So there's the traditional data points, and that's everything you see on the left. Casual fans are all familiar with this stuff. Goals and assists, shots, saves, hits, plus minus. Really anything you find in a high-level recap of a game in box score level information. Now, we track all that, but where our value and what we really are good at and what we're able to do that you can't do really with manual tracking is the advanced stuff here on the right. So as opposed to just saying that we collect goals, we can tell you what type of goal we collect. Is it off a rebound? Is it off a rush chance? Great, we have shots, but more importantly, we have the shot location. We have, was it a high percentage shot? Was it in the inner slot? Was it on the perimeter? Was it off a deflection? Again, hits, everyone has hits, but, we can tell you if a hit separates a player from possession of the puck. And so that's the type of context and the deeper level that we're able to do with this level of information. And so what do we do with this level of information? Go to the next slide. Is the storytelling, bringing context and storytelling for our media partners. So data by itself is great, but if you don't know really what it means or how it impacted a game or a performance, it's not as interesting. So taking a look here at this example from last year's postseason, Dallas beat the Blues 2-1. But if you look here on the left, all the traditional categories seem to be dominated by the Blues. They outshot them. They seem to be much more aggressive, more than doubling up the hits. They won the face-off battle. So was it dumb luck? Was it just anomaly? Why did the Stars win this game? And we found by digging in, there are data points and there's analytics that really predict that it's not a surprise that the Stars won this game. Namely, if you look at they were being very opportunistic and look at the type of shots they were able to take, which were 18 slot shots, which bested St. Louis in that category. Also, high quality scoring chances. And so when you really break it down and have the ability to go in and look in at this sort of data, it gives you a more complete picture of the game, gives fans a better understanding of what's happening, and hopefully feel more informed. So next slide. And so the type of storytelling we're doing right now is for our partners at Sportsnet and RDS and TSN on the broadcast end. We do also work with 30 of the 31 NHL teams. It's a little bit different what we do there. It's more on the analytic and reporting side, scouting, player procurement, that level of stuff. But for the sake of this conversation, we're going to focus on our media partners and specifically our broadcast partners. So this is a good opportunity for me to hand it over to Mike. Mike, why don't you take us through some of those specific examples and how we support our partners?
Yeah, thank you, Patrick. Appreciate it. So Patrick touched on a few things of what we're able to do for our partners here and the type of analysis that we offer. And I'll give you a little bit of a background on why we do this and why so many of our partners find this to be valuable, a valuable asset for themselves, for their organizations. You know, how I got into this, I've been in sports media for 15 years. And at one stage in my career, I was working as a host, hosting hockey programming and working with ex-players and ex-coaches. And I wanted to learn more about the game to be able to add more to the conversation. And I found great companies, and Sportlogiq being one, obviously, that tracks this incredible information and has this incredibly granular set of data that can really help explain the how and the why, and not just showing what happened and regurgitating, oh yeah, you see this guy goes here and then that happened. Pattern recognition through numbers can offer great insight, whether it's descriptive or predictive analysis that you're looking at. So what I think, you know, when a lot of people think about analytics, they think numbers, they think math, they may think charts and graphs, and the word itself, to me, in the media, certainly, it can be a barrier. Some people will tune you right out as soon as you say it. Other people really enjoy it. For me, as Patrick touched on, and for what we do here at Sportlogiq, it's a storytelling mechanism. We don't view our data, and there's so many data points, and there are things that we don't just ship off to clients or present on air. What we do is find the insights, the kind of the signal in all that information that matters, and find ways to express that simply for a very, very broad and general audience. So really what it is, it's an ability to tell effective stories and provide better analysis than you would otherwise be able to provide. And you see a couple of small examples here of just highlighting certain areas on the ice or passes that are made. The Dallas-St. Louis example, I think, is a great one. Because on the surface, yeah, it looked like St. Louis dominated that game, but in reality, Dallas used its speed effectively and created better opportunities to score. So there are layers underneath that can help better explain the game with this type of information. You know, I say oftentimes I'd rather tell people what I know than what I think. So this type of information can help you really understand what's going on in a game or with a certain player, be able to detect trends faster than any other way. So I want to show an example that I thought was a really good one from one of our clients this year at Sportsnet, Hockey Night in Canada, where they used an example of our information, which is highlighting the way that a certain team plays. And then, you know, because obviously this team does this thing a lot, these events occur often, it ended up happening shortly after. And I thought this was a great way to tell an effective story to a very broad audience.
All the way back into the Toronto zone. Tim, here's the super stats. All the way back into the Toronto zone. Tim, here's the super stats for this exact place where the Carolina Hurricanes are. They're dump-in rate. They do it more than anyone in the league. They win those battles more than anyone, and the scoring chances come off of it. So much in the image of Rod Brind'Amour, that's been where they've been able to have some success. And you can see how much it forces the D to make plays. You saw Dermott under pressure there, quick little stop up and get back, and you have to get back quickly to the puck so you can buy yourself another second. Around and lost control of the puck. And Out with it comes Nino Niederreiter to center. Eric Halla dumps the puck in. Here's that forecheck again. Sandin is back, had to turn quickly, ran into trouble, lost the puck, centering pass. Halla stopped by Anderson. Just after seeing that graphic, that's exactly what the Hurricanes did. Dumped it in, got after it, jarred the puck loose, and got a chance.
So that right there is a great example of being able to take information, be able to articulate in a simple way just a couple of data points of, hey, they dumped this in, they dumped the puck in a lot. They're really good at getting the puck and then creating chances by doing that. And then sure enough, 40 seconds later, it happens. I think that any fan, whether it's analytics or a casual fan sitting at home watching, can follow that really easily and be educated by it as well and say, okay, hey, this team does this, I'll watch for it. And then you see it happen because they do it more than anyone. It happens often. That's the type of stuff that, you know, someone growing up as a hockey fan and who still is a hockey fan, I think is really interesting. And you know, our partners have recognized our ability to enable them to do this at scale. And that to me is kind of the evolution of where coverage, whether it's broadcast, print, what have you, can go in sports and in hockey as well. I think other sports do a terrific job of this also, of taking the fan inside the game a little bit and showing them what's possible and what's likely to occur. So just some examples here. Again, I think the information is number one, having the really good information that you can use and the good insights that you can use, whether it's pregame, during a game, as you saw, or in your post-game coverage, the Dallas-St. Louis example, to help you tell better stories and analyze the game more effectively. I think the second part of it is the presentation. And again, I think there can be a bit of a barrier here with analytics and the general mass population, where you may see a chart or a graph that you don't quite understand and it's really complex and you tune out right away. You know, for us, it's important to have an ability to articulate this information in as simple a way as possible. Something, you know, the Canada-Denmark World Junior game, I think we all could have assumed this was probably going to happen in that game, but this just gives you an idea of how dominant Canada was, where they got their quality opportunities from, scored their goals from. Yeah, you're reading that right. That's 14-0. Buffalo, an issue with the 5-hole and Linus Ullmark here. Just 2 quick data points. He gives up 20% of his goals there. The league average is about half of that. Easy way to tell a story that, hey, this is a bit of a sore spot for this goalie to this point in the season, maybe something to target for an opponent. Philip Deneau, leading all forwards in the NHL blocking passes. This isn't why he's a great defensive centerman, but it's one reason that he's a great defensive centerman, his awareness and his ability to cause a loss of possession, which is something that we used on Hockey Night in Canada also this year. So again, just a simple top 5. Hey, he does this thing really well and it helps contribute to the type of player that he is. It's hard to quantify defense in hockey right now with traditional information. So again, just another way to do that. And then another example of showing shot locations on the ice. So presentation is a big part of it for us as well. You have to be able to get the information across clearly, or it doesn't really matter. You can have a great story, you can have great data, and if you can't present that information clearly and succinctly, it's going to get lost on the audience, and then, you know, it's not worth much. So, you know, that's a bit of an idea of how we approach using the information that we have internally with our partners as well in the media. And for me, my hope at the end of the day and my goal, no matter who we work with, is not to present analytics to the audience. It's to use analytics to present better analysis and better storytelling. I say it to our partners often. If you can present something that we give you in a way that the consumer doesn't even know that they were told a data-driven story, that's perfect. So quickly, those are some examples of how we do what we do and why we do it. And, you know, one of the reasons that we are a real leader in this space in the media. Oh, and this was just another example that I wanted to show as well of using animations, again, trying to find cool and innovative ways to present information. This was with RDS, a French partner of ours here. in Canada, just showing some locations, Shea Weber and his shooting tendencies. So it doesn't have to be a complex graph or something that's going to get lost on people. There are fun ways to do it. And I think if you can combine that good information and the fun, simple presentation, that's the way forward in using analytics.
So we looked at how these teams.
Sorry, yeah, Eugene, you can play that. And again, in the really simple way, just 1 second, we're doing our playoff predictions at The Point Hockey right now, and taking fans through kind of how teams play and some things they may not be able to get elsewhere. But this is a really simple way of showing it at the end, where you got all that knowledge and all those data points to make an informed decision. But again, you can present it really simply without using any numbers at all.
Teams play. We looked at the matchup in net. Now let's take a look and see who has the upper hand in a few key categories before we make a prediction. Pittsburgh has more offensive firepower than the Canadiens, and they're a better defensive team as well. Their power play is better, so is their penalty kill, so they get the special teams advantage also. I will, however, give an edge in goal to the Canadiens. I gave my reasons why in the goalie video posted earlier today. However, I can't see whatever slight advantage the Habs might have there being enough to take down the Pens, so I'm picking Pitt.
Losing control here. All right, so I'm going to talk through a little bit of what the available actual products and services are of how we put together these pieces. It all starts with data gathering. We have, Pat talked about the different ways that we're able to do the data gathering. We have AI and machine learning teams that do research and analysis, and then give us all of the information that is then looked at by the pro teams and the leagues, by us in the media, and then also we're starting to work with gaming and fantasy partners. So these are the opportunities that we have to pull all this information together. How do we use it, though? The question now is, what kind of stories are we telling, and then across what sort of platforms? So there's information that we're using on social media for streaming and OTT partners, and then broadcast partners are using it probably the most extensively. We kind of segment that into 3 different areas: pre-game, in-game, and post-game, and we're telling different types of stories in each of these cases. So pre-game, we're going to try and help prepare everybody with information about how the teams perform, predictions for the game, also preview of the matchups that are happening in that game. We'll talk about why a certain player is on a hot streak, or a team is on a hot streak or cold streak, and whether or not that actually is going to be something that can continue. In-game, we're able to provide information both during the game and at intermissions. So the most common thing that you may have seen is intermission stats. The information about the game that's actually being played. And then post-game, we're trying to tell the game story of why it occurred the way it was. We can do it with a great box score. We can do it with richer stats than what are traditionally being shown. Finally, standalone stories. These are things that happen, key performances, that we want to talk about in between the games. I'll show a graphic at the end showing how we're going to weave all these things together. The first and kind of the most basic type of product that we offer is reports and insights. So basically, it starts off with a pregame report. This is our structured information describing how goals are scored, how shooting, like what the shooting tendencies are, all sorts of different categories of content across everything that we watch. We take this information and then we can shape it into what we call game insights. So this is a slightly deeper point of view onto the actual game. So this one, the example here is showing that, in a game between Ottawa and Toronto, that you've got 2 of the top 5 deflection guys in the league. That comes from our data. But what the story you want to tell about it is you're going to look for a lot of net front work happening from both teams and getting the puck to the front of the net for these 2 guys to go and do what they do so effectively. Intermission reports, it's more detailed information about the specifics of that particular game. So the key stats like offensive zone possession time, shots on goal, shots from the slot, this kind of stuff. And then a breakdown of who actually is contributing to each one of those. A second piece, and Mike's shown a lot of great examples of these, infographics and animation. We're able to visualize all this same information. So goals by location, we have information about where each shot was taken from and where each goalie tends to make more saves or get scored on. The location graphic at the top right showed where the Blues and the Bruins were scoring their goals from. And then typical scoring chance information, like leaderboards and things like that. Another one is where we've been able to do stuff into multiple languages. Just for fun, we put this together as an example for NHL Europe, where we took the same goalie performance graphic and can offer it out to the different partners and the different, they're different markets that they're actually trying to ship everything into. So a lot of these kinds of graphics are things that our partners are using as sponsored elements. As an example, Bell, working with RDS, is using a couple of different approaches depending on whether the teams are playing at home or away. So Bell is sponsoring content to protect the home when the team is playing at home. And so they'll advertise their home security services, versus on the road, they're going to show speed of internet service. And so we're providing them content that goes with a specifically sponsored item. As well, you know, there's a lot of these types of analytics that serve really well to go by, to work with individual partners and specific aspects of it. So locations or investment companies that are looking for, you know, numbers-driven content. It works really well with the kind of content that they want to create. We create these longer form content packages. That's another big aspect of what we're offering. Broadcast ready, we've got our own studio set up with a green screen and can dress it up to pretty much any look and feel. So this one, we knew how to tell a particular story, and our ability to tell proactive stories, we knew what the story would be coming into the game, and it proved that that really was the important aspect of the game. It determined the game, the speed that Colorado was bringing here. We can do this across the board and tell those stories, again, provide them as completely finished video packages or animated features. Finally, Service Desk is kind of the underlying aspect to what we offer. It's a service on which you could reach out and ask questions to our team, the media team. We offer different tiers of service and then levels depending on the number of games you would look to access. There'd be a chance to turn around information in different time periods. But basically, it's use our team as a resource or research team to ask a question to. Say, all right, I'm going to be writing a piece on, again, deflection goals. Who are the best players at deflection goals in the league? Who's having deflections of each different type? So that's the kind of content that we're creating there and that we're sharing with our partners in advance of games, also in real time during games. Finally, the last thing is, this is something a little bit new to us. We've started providing betting content. So it starts off as shown on the left-hand side as a simple report, but information to know about the game that we think would be of interest to either people creating betting lines or bettors themselves. Then there's, visualized versions of it. So the game preview information in the middle. And this one was shown so that we could put it out, for example, on Instagram as different pieces of the overall content. And finally, a fully finished one on the right with showing who's the favorite, who's the puck line favorite, what the over-under likelihood is. And again, it's something that can be published really, really in a pretty and instant way. The content in there is based on our proprietary models and using our information as to what we think the predictions for the game are going to be. And we're constantly getting better and better with those. So this is some really interesting stuff happening. All of this gets pulled together in what we call an end-to-end storytelling approach. So if you start off at the top left, you could be putting a poll out on Twitter and saying, all right, the first game is going to happen for the qualifier. It's going to be Toronto and Columbus. What do we think the key stories of that game? Well, do you think that Toronto's offense is going to be able to get past Columbus's defense? All right, well, then we can come back and turn it into a graphic that can go out to betting partners and say, all right, here's what we think the impact will be on over-under. You can show it as part of a YouTube pregame channel or poll results on Instagram or Facebook. And then you're weaving a story that's continuous up until the game. Finally, the game starts. You're able to show the results of the poll. 46% of the fans think that Columbus's defense is going to be better, and 54% think Toronto's offense is going to be better. You can then weave it into other parts as the game goes on. You track it with, say, how many chances how many chances Toronto got in the slot, and we're going to follow it up all the way through the game. And we're constantly updating the same pieces of information, and then finally talking at the end of how it impacted the results. So you're able to start a story pre-game and then weave it all the way through the game. So just as a bit of a wrap up, we really focus, again, end-to-end storytelling across multiple platforms. You're looking for engagement as much as you can across all these different methods, but consistency in telling the stories the same way and in filling in the information the same way. You're trying to get people who are not necessarily watching the game to feel that they know what's happening in the game and still follow along with it. Okay. I think that's it for me.
I'll just add to that real quick. The one thing, in addition to working with broadcast partners, the amount of analysts, beat writers, et cetera, individuals that we've signed up to different package options, especially in the past year, has been terrific. And one of the great pieces of feedback that we get from a lot of these people, whether they're a beat writer covering a team or a national analyst, is their ability to add context in so many different areas of the game. So if a coach says, yeah, our penalty kill's been struggling, we're having a tough time, preventing the other team from getting into our zone. Well, we can put a number on that. We can put a ranking on that. We can tell you where it's been in those games versus the rest of the season, who does it well, who doesn't. And then their ability to then go out and present that information with that added context. So it is great in terms of descriptive analysis, predictive as well, as we showed. But I know one thing that a lot of people we work with really enjoy is the ability to kind of peel the onion back a few layers and dig into that context to help tell that better story.
Great stuff, Mike and Eugene. Really appreciate it. So we're at the Q&A period of our webinar, and we have one question in so far. So if there's more out there, feel free to send them across in the Q&A section on the bottom of your screen. The first question we have is, can you take us through the media team's day? How do you provide insights to your broadcast partners as they prepare for their coverage? Mike, Eugene?
Yeah. So in a typical game day, if we have a client who is broadcasting a game that night, I'll say 7 o'clock, during the day, we are looking at trends, trend analysis, what kind of stands out in terms of the way that these teams have been playing or do play overall. Obviously, there's big storyline items that go into every game and every market, and we don't ignore those either. So if it's one player, hey, this player's hot, he's got 5 goals in his last 3 games, what is contributing to that success? Well, we can, again, at a very granular level, highlight areas that have been different for that player and how he's been able to do it. So anomaly detection and all the data, looking at the trends and helping our clients better understand to get them set for the pregame with those insights that they can then use. And as Eugene mentioned, then also being able to thread that information throughout the game, taking that information and tracking it during the game. So, okay, if this team was doing this really well coming in, what about after the first period? What about after the second period? We have members of our team watching the games, interacting live with producers and with broadcasters, whether it's an analyst or play-by-player or whoever it may be. And then all the same things post-game as well. So being able to thread all these stories throughout the game, answer requests that we get during the game of, you know, hey, this unexpected thing has happened. What can you tell us about that? Again, just helps our partners provide analysis and tell those stories in a really effective way.
Great, thanks, Mike. Next question. This is a softball, so this is right up my alley. Where are you guys based? So our headquarters are in Montreal. I'm actually in Chicago. I work remotely with a lot of the different sales team here, but Mike is right now at the headquarters in Montreal, and Eugene is Montreal based as well. Okay. We've got interested to know more about the underlying technology, data storage, communication, and presentation layer. Likely this is the wrong forum. It might be. I'm going to look to you, on Eugene, on that one.
Yeah. I mean, the underlying technology, there's a lot of proprietary technology that's been used to collect the data, as well as, you know, things that are patented in terms of the actual recognition of players and that kind of stuff. We have a very, very strong computer vision team that has created a lot of that, all of that. Data storage is largely based on Amazon, AWS. Communication and presentation layer, I'm not even sure. I think, you know, our main application is a Java app, but I don't know how relevant that is one way or the other. We have an API that serves out the information as well. So there are multiple APIs that are feeding different pieces, whether it's the app or our customers, both professional and media. So I'm hoping I'm answering your question.
We have, just in terms of data collection in the game, a computer vision tracking system that uses the broadcast feed to do it. So the same way that anybody would watch a hockey game, we have a tracking system on that feed that collects all these data points. So again, not an IT guy by any means, and look around the office, I don't see one here right now either. So that's about as far as I can go into that.
Okay, hopefully that was hopefully that answered the question. Got a couple more. With no fans in the arenas, so many eyes will be on the broadcast and focused on storytelling. What types of stories would you like to see, and how will you handle so many games happening? That's a really interesting question. I could open, and I think, you know, Mike and Eugene jump in. You know, I think what is going to be, I mean, you don't know until you see the games, but I think what's going to be interesting when we start actually watching live games on TV is there's going to be more opportunities to fill up that space with this type of interesting stuff, these type of interesting analytics, right? Where they might have had 5 to 10 seconds before, maybe go a little bit deeper into that. So very selfishly, I'd love to see more of our data being presented in, you know, in the game. But I think it's also, I mean, as a fan too, you know, I think it also opens up to a lot of education and kind of makes you look at the game different. I don't know, you guys, what would you like to add to that before we kind of handle the so many games question?
The so many games question actually is pretty easy. We handle more games concurrently than that anyway, so that's not really an issue. Between the computer processing and the people processing and our teams were pretty well set up to do that. Having 8 concurrent games on a Saturday night's no big deal. So we're well used to that. Mike, you want to go more?
I think you guys pretty much covered it. It actually, having the games staggered is helpful. Just from producing insights and manpower, as far as that's concerned. You'll have some overlap here and there, a game, but not necessarily 3 or 4 running at the same time. So,
I mean, what types of stories would you like to see? Any type of story that we feel that we can make a nice contribution to.
Yeah.
The challenge for us is stories about a player coming to play in their hometown or against their old coach or something like that, where there's an emotional bent to it, are not things that we contribute to directly. Stories about the player's performance, we're great about. Like that's our bread and butter. So we're very, very strong on that. So we like those performance style stories more than anything else.
Okay. We got a few more questions here. So thanks for the presentation, guys. Very informative. Thanks, Mom. My questions is what, if any, are the key analytical statistics that you will be tracking when play resumes shortly? Just thinking to the idea that many are raising in the hockey world about younger teams possibly having the upper edge given the longer break, etc.
It's a great question, Gabriel. Thank you for writing in. So something like, potentially younger teams having an edge versus older teams. We're in an unprecedented time with what's happening here. Having a layoff and then a postseason in a bubble with no fans. There are things that cannot be accounted for because they haven't happened. So there is that element. But in terms of what analytically we'll be tracking when the games resume. As Eugene mentioned, performance analysis is our bread and butter, and we know what contributes to winning a hockey game and what doesn't. So, for us, that doesn't change much. It is, team that scores the most wins, right? Well, how do you score? You create good scoring opportunities from areas of the ice where you're likely to score goals from. We know what those areas are. You peel the onion another layer. How do you do that? And that's where you start to see different approaches by different teams. So that's where, to me, it's not one thing. It's, St. Louis, they dump pucks in, they win battles on the wall, they cycle low to high. This was a big driver of their success last year in the playoffs. Are they able to do those things that they're trying to do at a high level? A team like Chicago that's rush-based attack, are they able to execute what they're trying to do? So from an analytical standpoint, once you get past the givens, I'll say, of get the goals, get the quality chances, don't give them up, it starts to become, how are you doing it? And are you playing to the strengths of your own team? Those are the things that we pay a lot of attention to. I think the Carolina example that we gave earlier against Toronto would be an idea of that, of we know this is what Carolina is trying to do. This is how they try to generate a lot of their offense. So are they able to do it? That's where we focus a lot.
So, Mike, do you think actually maybe older teams have an advantage because of the layoff, or everybody's bumps and bruises are recovered?
I'll be shocked if you find a worthwhile statistical correlation between younger teams being successful or older teams. I think there's a lot of noise there. I'll take the more talented older team versus the less talented younger team, or vice versa, if you want to look at it that way. So, give me the teams that play well and know what they're doing, regardless of age.
Good stuff, Mike. A few more questions here before we wrap up. Do you see betting becoming a bigger part of hockey and sports in general? It's very apparent in the NFL now and even in the MLS return. I'll take this, and guys, again, jump in. The short answer is yes. I think over the last 2 years, once the Supreme Court ruling in the United States, betting initially is becoming, it's obviously being done state by state, and every state is not legal yet. But as it expands, as it gets into more and more states, I think there was an initial kind of feeling out period. And I think that's still going on the media side, and how much should a media or for a broadcast incorporate that into it? And those are conversations. I mean, most of my conversations at some point, betting comes up, and how to serve that audience. So yeah, I think the short answer is yes. You're going to see that more and more. Obviously, NFL, it's a huge part of what's kind of enjoying that sport for some people for quite some years. It's just as it kind of expands to these other sports, including hockey, a lot of the stuff we're working on is around betting and is around how to serve that audience. And Eugene talked it a little bit earlier. Not so much, we don't want to make necessarily predictions on it, but we want to inform and help our partners inform, their users on, what matters.
I think, yeah, just to follow up a tiny bit, with the leagues playing, and that applies to all of these sports, into empty stadiums, they're going to have to look to ways to provide additional revenue, and that they're going to need to find something that will do it, and betting is a likely opportunity for them to follow.
Okay, we have 2 more questions here, and I think we'll wrap it up. I apologize if I missed it, but is there an online research tool available for independent searches, or will search be a request to the help desk, your group, then waiting for a response? So yes, for writers and media, it's the service desk option with some actual reports that we would send daily. Traditionally, we have writers. What we do is, if you're covering a specific team, we would provide you pre-game and post-game reports for that team. And then as part of that package, we would open up our service desk for requests and to support, additional questions. We don't really have an online tool. We do. It's more geared. It's for the team clients, the front offices, and so how we support our media and editorial clients is that way through service desk and some pre-game reports.
Yeah, and we, in all honesty, our application where our information is housed, it takes a long time to learn how to use the tool effectively. Not because it's incredibly user friendly, but just to understand the information, to understand how to thread it together, and go from just data to insights. Is what we do for a living. So the service desk, what's great about it is we run it on Slack. It can be very instantaneous. You write a message, get a response quickly. There's not big lag times there. So I know a lot of our partners have actually preferred that, because we can help, take them right to that meaningful insight at the end, as opposed to having them try to sort it all out on their own first.
Yeah, and if it's something you're interested in, there's the sales at SportLogic email you can send to, and I can get you more information. Last question, good one to end on. What are your Stanley Cup predictions? Mike's going to have the biggest opinion here, and probably the most informative opinion. So I'll just go out on a limb and say Boston. Crazy prediction there.
You're a Chicago guy? You're not saying Chicago?
I might have been tempted to if we knew Crawford was playing. Seeing as that is very questionable, I am just going to play with the head here and say the Bruins will be hoisting the cup in October, I think. What do you got, Eugene?
Oh boy. Yeah, that's a good question. Tampa. I think some team's going to get really hot, and they're a kind of team that could go on a run. So it's actually kind of an interesting one this year, where you don't have the automatic continue on in your own division. So a team like Toronto could actually surprise people, because they may not have to go through Tampa and Boston to get out of their own division. And the same goes for Tampa not needing to play Boston. Boston could get knocked off by, a lower ranked team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's one of the reasons I love covering hockey specifically is, you take a sport like basketball. There are years where who's playing in the final before the season starts. The NFL, who the favorites are, certainly. Maybe not quite the same as basketball in that sense, but closer. Hockey is really difficult to predict. Look to last year. St. Louis was in last place New Year's Eve, and they won the Stanley Cup. So the team that I kind of like, that may surprise some people, may not, that I think has a real good shot, is Vegas. And there's some big boys in the West, obviously, and great teams like you guys mentioned in the East. But I love the addition of Robin Lehner. I like the goaltending, and I think when that team is going, they're really hard to slow down and stop. They're pretty tenacious. So I'll go with Vegas, and we'll see if hopefully one of us gets it right.
So, Mike, you don't think empty stadiums and the home rink advantage there that the Knights generally have, one of the best atmospheres, it's not gonna impact it anyway?
Nah, it's again unprecedented. It's hard to say. You know, it'll be bizarre, I think, for the players for sure who feed off that type of energy and have grown so accustomed to it. But no, I think they'll be fine wherever they play.
Okay, there you have it. I think that brings us to a close here. Thanks everybody for joining. Mike, Eugene, obviously, thanks for coming along for the ride. And if there's any questions, there's a sales at SportLogic email. Feel free to hit us up. Again, thanks for your time, and everyone enjoy some live ice hockey here in a couple of weeks.